Back on HQ, taking a look at your AFC playoff picture. This high-stakes game of musical chairs. Soon the music will stop, and could have stopped here on Saturday night with the Broncos, an opportunity to lock in to that final playoff spot. But with the loss to the Bengals, hope's still alive for Cincinnati, the Colts, and the Dolphins. Much needed for all. The Broncos still controlling their destiny. A Week 18 meeting with that 1 seed, the Chiefs. Back in studio to assess, Joe Musso, Bryant McFadden. Mac, let's start with the Bengals' chances. We know that a number of dominoes still need to fall for them to find themselves in the playoffs, but they are doing their part right now. They're finding a way to win football games, the offense clicking on all cylinders. Do you see a defense starting to play at a playoff caliber level?
You know what? I wouldn't say a playoff caliber level, but they're playing good enough to get into the postseason, considering what we saw in the first half of the season. Remember, early on, that was the Achilles heel for their team. They couldn't get any stops. They wasn't forcing any turnovers, and they just couldn't uphold their end of the bargain in terms of what their offense was giving them. But now they're getting the necessary stops, and they're playing with more confidence. And most importantly, Joe, I'm loving what I'm seeing in terms of tackling. They're doing a great job in tackling, getting the opposing ball carrier down to on the field and not allowing any yak and any big-time plays. Yeah. If you look at some of the more devastating losses that we've watched from the Cincinnati Bengals, it was because of the coverage or the lack thereof, allowing people to get behind them. Think about the Charger game. Think about both games against the Baltimore Ravens. Those were winnable opportunities, but because they were not sound in coverage and not tackling, they lost those ball games. Now they're playing better football, and they're giving their offense the necessary boost they need to be able to showcase what they can do. The energy is there, the bounce is there, and they're putting it all together at the most important time, which is now in the NFL season.
I ask that to ask this. You just saw the Pittsburgh Steelers, your Steelers.
Yep.
I don't know if it was field level or from up in the suite. Either way, you just saw them in person on Christmas Day. How do those two teams match up right now?
Right now, Cincinnati, they're playing better football. The Pittsburgh Steelers, they're in the midst of a 3-game losing streak, right? And let's look at the teams they lost to. The Philadelphia Eagles, the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs.
Might be the 3 best teams in the NFL.
All 3 of those teams have what in common? They have a go-getter at the quarterback position. You can say whatever you want to say about Jalen Hurts, but he's a franchise quarterback. Lamar Jackson is an MVP candidate, and Pat Mahomes he's risen. He's woke. He's up now. He's woke, right? He's woke. And all 3 of those players, when they played against the Pittsburgh Steelers, they had success against Pittsburgh, right? Now, if you look at Cincinnati, the last time I checked,
they got a quarterback.
Who is their quarterback?
They got a quarterback, too.
And if they were giving out monthly awards in terms of the MVP category, he would be winning the MVP for the month of December. That's Joe Burrow. So when you look at what Joe Burrow has done, you look at the confidence he's playing with, and yes, today he got sacked 7 times. It didn't matter. He still threw for over 404 total touchdowns. So the timing in terms of when Pittsburgh is going to face off against Cincinnati is not ideal, because clearly their defense, they've been having issues on all 3 levels. And this is the wrong time to have issues on the defensive side, where you're playing against a quarterback who's been hibachi hot coming into your territory and knowing this is the most important game of the season. And that's the scenario that's currently circulating the Cincinnati Bengals.
That is their part of the equation. Another part of the equation would be the Broncos suffering what would be a heartbreaking loss to a skeleton squad expected out of the 1-seed Kansas City Chiefs. Locked into the 1, nothing can hurt them. It's likely going to be Carson Wentz. It's likely going to be a different tight end. It's likely going to be a different running back. You're going to see depth at the wide receiver position. Maybe some depth also tested on the defensive side. But there is that idea of big brother, little brother between the Broncos and the Kansas City Chiefs. You just saw the Kansas City Chiefs up close and personal on Christmas Day. You saw some of that depth as well. What does that matchup look like to you, Week 18?
This is a scary moment for the Denver Broncos, because to your point, there's nothing at stake for the Kansas City Chiefs, so it's safe to say they probably will rest some of their key experienced starters. But even though, if that's the case, they still have depth to what you alluded to, Joe. Remember, against the Pittsburgh Steelers, Stone Cold Jones did not play. Chris Jones, they didn't miss him. right? You look at some of the things they've been dealt with the entire season. Not having Isaiah Pacheco, it didn't matter. They won ball games. Not having Rashid Rice, it didn't matter. They won ball games. Remember, they didn't have DeAndre Hopkins for the majority of the season. It didn't matter. They won ball games. So they have depth there. And the last time I checked, even if you don't have Pat Mahomes, Travis Kelce, Chris Jones, you still will have Andy Reid calling plays. You still will have Andy Reid preparing these guys like this is the most important game of the season. And the defense still will be led by who? Steve Spagnuolo. So this is still a formidable group without some of their key starters that we anticipate not seeing. And for the Denver Broncos, I said this earlier, this is the bed you made. You didn't necessarily have to have this bed made. You had a comfortable layout. All you had to do was win or tie tonight in Cincinnati. But because you were playing around with your food,
Thinking about that tie,
got complacent. Now you're in a win or go home scenario against against the best team in the National Football League, with or without their starters.
You heard him say it. I've been trying to get him to say it all season long. The best team in the National Football League, the Kansas City Chiefs, looking for 3 straight. It's a different conversation for a different day. We do have work to attend to. We'll take that one up to the green room, Mac. You know how we do it. We also have a big-time turnaround. We sat in these very chairs a year ago and lambasted the Chargers for wasting talent. They're currently squeezing everything out of a lesser roster right now. The coach has got to be a huge part of that. How impressed are you at what Coach Harbaugh has gotten out of his guys this year?
For number one, they're in the playoffs. Joe, how many games did they win last year? 4? 5?
It wasn't good.
It wasn't good. They fired everyone, right? But in comes the Renaissance man, to say the least, Coach Harbaugh. He got these players to believe, and they're playing inspired football. Now, when you look at the team they played against today, they were supposed to win. But I love the style they demonstrated.
Leave no doubt.
Beating the Patriots. Now, do we believe they can shake some things up in the playoffs? I don't know. But I can tell you what I saw today was very, very encouraging, because it wasn't like they barely got through the New England Patriots. No, they kicked down the door and they moved all the furniture in the living room and said, this is our house. That's what you needed to see from them, because they need to go into the playoffs playing with confidence. The quarterback playing with confidence. Ladd McConkey is wide receiver 1 right now. Having J.K. Dobbins back in the lineup, they were praying diligently, trying to get him back in the lineup. And guess what? The man above answered the prayers, because they're a better team running the football with J.K. Dobbins in the lineup, because he is their best playmaker. And not having him in the lineup, this was the offense that lacked playmakers. So now when you look at what they're doing, not to mention how healthy they are on the defensive side, Bosa, Mack, and anytime Derwin James is around the line of scrimmage, he is coming. Protect the house, lock the doors. He is coming. And when you see him there, something bad is going to happen for your offense. So I'm loving what I'm seeing right now. And I understand they might not have the stars that some of the other teams might have in the playoffs in the AFC. But if you catch them in the wrong evening,
I'll punch you in the mouth.
Yeah, and you will go home crying, because you won't be advancing to the next round.
A massive step forward for the Chargers under their head coach in his first year there. It's
Great
what
job.
he does. He arrives.
Coach of the year.
He turns things around.
Well, Kevin O'Connor, there's a lot going on.
1, 2. We'll see how it all shakes out with those individual awards all coming to a head, including the MVP. I do want to take one look here at the NFC side, because we got LA back in the win column. Not pretty once again on Saturday night, but they get the job done. And you know, a year ago, it was the computers the issue for the Chargers, letting the computer make the decision too many times. Well, the computers are telling us right now it's likely going to be the Rams representing the West, if it be by head-to-head win over Seattle in Week 18 or strength of victory, however it shakes out. It's likely to be those Rams sitting at 3. Right now, it would be Rams-Packers in L.A. If things do move a bit, maybe also probable Rams-Commanders. When you look at those two matchups, I mean, I'm looking at the Commanders and the Packers as liver sides right now. Am I looking at it wrong?
No, you're not. I mean, the Packers, before anything happens between the Packers and the Minnesota Vikings, they're playing some really, really good football also. And to your point about the Rams and the offensive issues, you don't want to have those issues against the Green Bay Packers, because the one thing about the Green Bay Packers, they can cause some damage against you running the football or throwing it with a multitude of pass catchers that they believe in. So for the Rams, defensively, we've applauded them, right? Over the last 3 ball games, you look at playing against the San Francisco 49ers, the Jets, and tonight against Arizona, they took care of their business. But those offenses, they do not amount to what the Green Bay Packers have potentially if you were to see that team in the playoffs. So they have some things they need to get going, more so than what we've seen. But they're in a position to do so because I trust Sean McVay.
Coaching advantage against either of those teams?
I'm taking Sean McVay over any coach in the NFC.
Yeah.
I've said week in and week out, I think he's the best coach in the NFC. And I'm not saying this solely on this year. I'm just saying his overall body of work compared to what he's done this season, right? You look at where they currently sit. No one thought the Rams would be in a position not only just to get into the playoffs, but to host a playoff game because they won the division. He's been asked to do more with less, and he has delivered. Even on Sundays when you don't receive mail, he has been delivering everything you needed to see from him because he is him as the head coach for the Rams. So I'm loving what he's doing, but it's going to be entertaining because you can pick and choose who or what matchup you love to see. You will not walk away being disappointed.
Playoff football just a couple sleeps away. We got Week 18 to sort things out. Week 17 coming on Sunday, but that picture's starting to come into focus. Here's a look at your Sunday on CBS and streaming live on Paramount+. Jets and Bills with the win. Bills lock into the 2 seed. Will Josh Allen then play in Week 18? A question to be asked and an answer a week off. The Panthers and the Buccaneers going head-to-head. The Bucs gotta have it, but the Panthers a live side right now. Titans and Jags, that's gonna happen. Dolphins and Browns with the Dolphins outside hope for an AFC playoff berth. It's all coming your way on CBS and streaming on Paramount+.